Welcome to the Gold Medal Excellence Podcast. I'm your host, Alexander Payne, along with my co-host, Chris Asher. And today on the program, we're joined by longtime college football coach, Gary Bernardi. Coach Bernardi, thanks for coming on the program.
No problem. Sounds great.
Coach, thanks for coming on there. I've never met you in person, but I definitely know about you just from my years of being around coaching. And I actually worked at San Jose State a few years ago when your son was on the staff. So spoke to him a few times.
Okay. You know, what's interesting is I was there for 3 years before him, and he replaced me when I left and went to Colorado.
Okay. So you were with that staff. Yeah, definitely. But just over the years, just in the Southern California area, I've heard about you and stuff. So
Thanks.
glad to meet you through Zoom.
Yeah, definitely. So let's start from the very beginning. You're born in the San Fernando Valley. You have a brother, Rob. Talk about your family, your childhood growing up.
Well, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and it was a great place to grow up, and we had a wonderful background. And there was 3 boys in my family, and we all played, not all in college and everything, but I have one brother that is associate AD at Louisiana Monroe, and he was the AD at Nicholls State for 15 years, and then he was at Tulane. And then my son is in coaching. He's the line coach at Troy University in Alabama. My son-in-law is in coaching, and he's the special teams coach and tight end coach at Western Kentucky University. So my wife and I have been married for over 40 years, and our kids are involved in coaching, and so their spouses are involved, and so it's been great. I never thought it was going to be this good, and I had a real good example and somebody that really cultivated me into coaching. In my high school coach, who I still have a good relationship at Monroe High School, his name was Harry Frum and Ken McKenna, and they're both still alive. And one lives in Simi Valley, one lives in Westlake, and I'm still able to keep an association with them. And they just gave me great direction, just as good examples of coaching and the quality of people and how to treat people. And obviously my parents, but in coaching, those guys had a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Went to Monroe High School, was an all-league receiver and team captain, graduated in 1971. Talk about your high school years. We spoke before this podcast, you went against Eric Sonheimer at Grant High School. Talk more about your high school years and the different peers you faced.
Oh, well, in the San Fernando Valley at that time, San Fernando High.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis and Charlie White were there. Yeah. And it was very sad to hear Charlie had passed away. I remember in Pop Warner football, getting to know Charlie. So I knew Charlie for a long time. And then when I was at SC, Charlie was involved in the athletic department, obviously. And, at Granada Hills, they had Dana Potter, was a great quarterback. And then after that, John Elway came, and they had great receivers. And Dave Baldwin was one of the receivers who I stayed in touch with for a long time. He was in coaching. And then obviously Jimmy Fenwick, who passed away about a year ago, was a close friend that, we went back to, Pop Warner football, and Jimmy was great. And, the relationships that you maintain during recruiting and being around for so long, Kevin Rooney, when I first started coaching, was Kevin Rooney's first year at Notre Dame.
Wow.
And, I tell my wife, or I would tell other coaches, do you know how many times I went to Notre Dame High School and sat and talked to Kevin Rooney, or went to Hart and talked to Mike Harrington or Jimmy Bonds or one of the other Harrington brothers and Ed Croshan, Larry Muir, Saugus High. Canyon High when Harry Welsh was there.
Oh yeah.
You know, Jason Bourne does a great job at Saugus High. He doesn't get as much attention, but this whole valley was really a really good place. And in having played at Monroe and being a graduate in Northridge, when I had to start recruiting, it was, you know, I always ran into somebody I knew.
And it's sorry, Coach. Just to jump in, I was a Northridge graduate. That's one way I kind of like knew who you were. I ran track with Coach Stramitz, but like the names you say, like the Valley was a hotbed. You had the Elways, you had all the other coaches. Yeah. You had you heard about Bernardi Hills, Taft, like you said, Coach Rooney, who had all those state champions over at Notre Dame. That's not even the city section was really good back then. Not only the Valley, you guys had the Banning and Carson, the Ferragamos. Oh man, who I worked with. So you were really going after, and a lot of people don't know that or remember that.
Well, his last name slips my mind, but Robert, the coach of San Fernando High School, he's done a really good job at San Fernando High School.
Yeah.
And he was a walk-on that he went to Kennedy High School. And Bob Francola said, the next time you come, I want to introduce you to this young man. He wants to walk on at UCLA. And I said, great, no problem. So I come back the next time and I'm thinking, well, that's where Jeff Bregel played, he was, and Robert was a real short guy, stocky guy. And I said, man, I don't know if this guy can walk on here at UCLA, but he was really a good student and a hardworking kid. And when people see him today or see him or know of him, and I tell them that Robert played in games for us at UCLA and was a contributor, they're shocked. And he's done a great job over at San Fernando. And, it's just wonderful. Jeff Engelman was at Sylmar.
Oh, yeah. Sylmar was really good.
Then you recruit guys. And, Jermaine Lewis was a kid that he's at Antelope Valley High, and I recruited him to UCLA with Darrell Price at San Fernando, London Woodfin. And it just keeps snowballing, and it's wonderful. It really is.
So after that, you attend College of Canyons in Valencia, California in 1973, 1974. We've had a lot of people on this program who went to junior college. Talk more about the benefits of junior college. Oh, yeah.
Well, the junior college, it's a stepping stone to where you need to go. And I wasn't a great player. I had some success at Monroe, and unfortunately for me, when we were playing in the LA City semifinals at the Rose Bowl against Bell High School, and at that time they had a doubleheader. There was probably 24,000 people there that day, and Carson played Cleveland, and we played Bell in a doubleheader, and unfortunately we won the game and had to play Carson the next week in the city championship game, and there were like 19,000 people at the city championship game at East LA College. But I did get a pretty severe knee injury, which led to a knee replacement 2 years ago and reconstruction. And when you were a 4.7 running back in high school at 1972, you didn't have knee reconstruction surgery and improve your speed. That's for darn sure. And so my time after that was limited, but I still knew what I wanted to do, and that was my goal. Was just when I realized I wasn't going to be a real contributor in college, that I just went into coaching, and I had a chance to go to Bell Jeff High School in maybe 75 and worked 2 years there, and then finished my degree. And then I had the opportunity, a guy from Monroe, Mike Milner, was at Fountain Valley High School, and I got a job there for 4 years and really had a good experience. Good coaches, they did a really good job. Everybody was on campus, and there was 4,800 students at that time. And we used to play Edison High School at Anaheim Stadium, and there'd be 15, 16,000 people there. And we were fortunate. I believe it was in '78 we won the 5A CIF championship at that time. You had to play 5 games to win the CIF championship at that time, and there's only 4 or 5 champions. You had 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, and then 5A or something. And so it was a nice distinction, and I had a great experience. In 1980, I had a chance to go to University of Arizona, and was able to stay there. And Larry Smith came after Tony Mason, and Coach Smith kept me. And in '87, we went to USC, and I was there for 6 years, and I was fortunate. And, I never had ever been to the Rose Bowl, and really my mom and dad couldn't afford to take us to the Rose Bowl game, but I loved it. I loved the drama of the Rose Bowl. I loved the excitement of it, the day, and all that. And but I never wanted to really go until I was involved. And when we went to SC, I was fortunate that we went 3 times to the Rose Bowl, played Michigan and Michigan State and Michigan again. And then when I was at UCLA, we went to the Rose Bowl again. So it's a great bowl. It's when they say the granddaddy of them all, it is. Now it's changed because of the playoff system in college football, but it's still a sellout, and it's still an important game. And it was a great experience for me. When I went, or when I coached in the Rose Bowl, it was still, the bowl games were the priorities, and the Rose Bowl was the most important, especially for somebody growing up on the West Coast or the Midwest. And then after 6 years, they made a coaching change, and I was fortunate enough. Coach Donahue and I knew each other. He went to Notre Dame High School, and he was older than I, but just through recruiting and recruiting the same guys when I was at Arizona and SC that they were recruiting, and this and that. But I was very, very fortunate. I think it was '94. I had a chance to go to UCLA, and Coach Donahue hired me, and ended up staying for 10 years and was there with 3 different coaches. But, that was a good and just turned into a great experience too. And I was appreciative of Coach Donahue hiring me at that point, and being in the program and meeting a lot of great people. And then Bob Toledo retaining me. And Bob and I ended up working together for 9 years, and then Carl Durrell. And I went to Northern Arizona for 1 year and moved my family to Flagstaff, and we had a wonderful time. Coached the offensive line at Northern Arizona. And then Mike Sanford called, and we had worked together at SC, and he got the job at UNLV. And so I went to UNLV, and I was there for 5 years, and we didn't have as much success as you'd like, but we did a good job. Mike Sanford did a good job there, and we got better and better as we progressed through. My daughter went there and played softball. My son went to Fresno State and played in that time period. And then I went to San Jose State for 3 years, and then Colorado for 6 years. And then Coach Long called me after we were dismissed to Colorado, and he had a position at San Diego State. So I went there for 4 years, and obviously enjoyed the heck out of that, and had a lot of success. And Coach Hoke's doing a great job, and I love working for Coach Hoke. And at some point you have to just, I have 6 grandkids and 3 children spread out across the country.
Yeah.
And it's important that I spend more time with them too.
So you went to Cal State Northridge, graduated in 1976. We've had longtime head coach Don Stramett on the podcast, who coached track and field there for over 30 years. And you went to CSUN a few years later in 1980. And Coach Chris was a CSUN track alum as well. But then you start your coaching career on your 19th birthday at Bell Jeff High School in Burbank. And then you've also gotten a California secondary degree education teaching credential from Vanguard University. Talk about that experience.
Well, I mean, you just did your student teaching and progressed, and I wanted to make sure to have a credential, so it provided you the opportunity to have more opportunities to at a wider range, and you're not locked into having to work at a private school because you don't have your credential. So I wanted to be able to have the freedom to go where the opportunity to get a job, but the freedom to be as good a program as I could be. And as I said, at Fountain Valley High School in the time when I was there as an assistant coach and an instructor, boy, they had a lot of success, and it was a wonderful opportunity. And Mike Milner, who was a Monroe grad and actually a Northridge grad, assisted me and helped me get hired there. And then in 1980, I left and had the chance to go to the University of Arizona.
You serve as a receivers and tight ends coach at Fountain Valley High School from 1976 to 1979. Work with future Stanford All-American and Bears receiver Ken Margarum. You've went 47-1 during your tenure, winning a CIF championship in 1978. And then in 1980, you move up to Arizona to coach under Larry Smith as a part-time coach, working with tight ends and also serving as an administrative assistant. Talk about the jump from coaching high school to the Pac-10.
Well, at that time in 1980, when I got there, as I said previously, Tony Mason was the head coach, and they had a change during the first spring I was there, and Larry Smith came in. And
didn't he come from Hawaii, Coach? Larry Smith came in from Hawaii, right?
He came from Tulane.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of Dick Tomey. I'm thinking of
Dick Tomey. So when we left to go to SC in '87, Dick Tomey came there.
From Hawaii, that's right. Okay.
From Hawaii to U of A,
yeah,
and did an outstanding job. But I worked for Larry Smith for 13 years, and it was a real learning experience. And you think about all the things that you learn and the roots that you're built and the foundation that you are taught. And that's where really the foundation of football, of coaching football, I learned on the run working for Coach Smith. And you either learned on the run or you're going to be gone. And I also it reestablished in my mind what's really important in life. And the very, very first meeting we ever had as a staff, when Coach Smith got there, and I was told I was going to be retained in my role. It says part-time, but there's nothing part-time in college football. It was part-time on payday, but it wasn't part-time and going to work. But he always said, if you're loyal and you work hard, you're never going to have a problem with me. And so, I busted my butt to do a good job and work hard, and he never had to question my loyalty to him. And when he had a chance to go to SC, I was asked to go. And so I ended up being with him for 13 years. And then you take that experience and you go to UCLA and Coach Donahue.
Yeah,
I had a very formative upbringing in coaching in that regard too. And everywhere I've been to, I guess, 8 schools. I've liked every school. I've had a good experience, and fortunately, my family's had a good experience when we have moved. But it's hard work, and you have to do a good job. But if you're loyal, it gets you in the right direction. And And you have to work hard in college football. In today's world in college football, it's no different. It's different in recruiting and the bowl structure and championship games and all that. But at the end of the day, you still got to coach, and you still got to coach the players. You can get them to play on Saturdays. And I was fortunate with the background that I got with those coaches I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Coach, it's funny you said that, because my first year, I tell people they go, how much you make coaching? I said, my first year, I worked about 40 to 50 hours a week, and I made $2,500 for the year. And people go, what?
Yeah.
And when you say part-time, that's not even part-time. I was waiting tables. Then the next year I got a $10,000. He said, I'm going to give you $10,000.
I hit it big.
Yeah, hit it big. And, it takes 3 or 4 years at least to get into the game. And so, so sometimes I'm around people, they're like, oh, I'm only getting this to start. I'm like, in a profession I've been in, you got to grind your way up. But then, like you said, once you get up there and you're loyal and people know you work hard and you recruit, sky's the limit. So,
yeah. By the way, my first hire to Arizona was making $325 a month.
There you go.
So I wasn't eating too many steaks, that's for sure. But, it's that and I think in recruiting, or I think that, that's one of the things that playing college football is special. And you get a degree and you play college football or college athletics, you are going to help yourself and make yourself more marketable and give you a chance to help you be successful in life. And people hire young people that are involved in an extracurricular activity. And when you play football in the off season, you got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 4 days a week. And you have to perform under pressure, and you have to persevere, and you have to prepare to play. You've got a heck of a background to help somebody in some business that you're interested in. And it's not whether you're a star or not a star. I feel strongly, if you play or contribute and get your degree, you've given yourself the opportunity to be successful in life, and you made yourself marketable. It's not the end all, but you've helped yourself. Absolutely. And I think there's a lot to that.
Mm-hmm. You've coached the tight ends coach from 1980 to 1984. Then you started coaching the receivers in 1985, returned to tight end in 1986. And also you became the recruiting coordinator at Arizona. Talk more about the responsibilities of being named the recruiting coordinator, and what do you look for as a recruiter?
Well, I think that originally when I first started, Coach Smith kept me because I was from California, and most of the staff was from the Midwest. And Coach Smith had come from Michigan originally, in Miami of Ohio. Yeah. And the coaches had on the staff, there was a lot of Midwest background. And it was good for me to get exposed to that. But I think that's one of the reasons you had all
the local ties, Coach. You had all the local ties. You had everybody in the valley that SC needed to go after. Like you didn't have anybody else on staff that could do that,
So I think that helped me. But it's when to be the recruiting coordinator is a little bit, you're the recruiting organizer. And it still comes down to each guy in his area doing a good job. And I'll tell you, San Jose State, we did a great job of working camps. Oh, man, we worked camps. It's when the camps just started blossoming.
Yeah.
And on campus, off campus, traveling camps. And it's a matter of just organization. And I got to know, when I was in Arizona, I got to know Bill Reese real well, and he was at UCLA, and he was the recruiting coordinator there. And little did he know it, he helped me a lot. We would just talk, and he was young guy at that time. And it's like anything else in life. If you go to a high school and you treat people well, And a high school coach, I always took the approach that it was my responsibility to service that the area in which I recruited. And I always remember having a long conversation with Jim Bankert about that. And he get frustrated because guys, he felt sometimes guys, he didn't know who would recruit his school. And he always had some players, but guys didn't always follow up. And you have to follow up on your area. And you can't take everybody, but you can still treat people well and be honest. And I think high school coaches respected that approach.
How was your network, Coach? I say that because when I started, I just was hustling. You recruit everybody, you do everything you can. But as I got older and started coaching for years and years, I got to the point where like the Dorsey coach, Coach Knox at Dorsey, or Coach Tilley, the track coach, or Coach Garrett, whatever. Those guys would just kind of send me people. It got to the point where I had those relationships. I did good with their previous kids, and I would just, it got to the point you still have to recruit the kid, but I could call Coach Tilley at Dorsey or Coach Knox. And they say, hey, Chris, you're not going to get this kid because he's going to USC or UCLA. But they tell me right away, but I could get you this kid. Or they say, I got a really good kid for you. And like I tell people, it's all relationships.
It's all relationships.
Yep.
And but it's the relationships. And if you say something, you better back it up.
Yep.
Don't tell that high school coach something and then don't follow up on it.
Yep.
And if you're going to recruit that kid, you better be upfront and honest with them. And you're walking a fine line. And I remember before. It's a lot different now, but if the high school coach thought that you mistreated the kid or you backed out of a scholarship offer, there was a good chance you better not show up there for a year or two because you weren't going to be welcome there.
Yeah.
And now kids change left and right, and there's there's not the same kind of loyalty that goes out in terms of with the high school coaching because the kids just change now. They for whatever reasons, things happen differently now, but it doesn't change the way you recruit. For me, it never changed because I just try to always nurture the area that I recruited.
1987, you followed Coach Smith at USC to coach the tight end still. Talk about following your head coach during your coaching change. I mean, did it cost a few loyalties?
Well, I mean, we were in Arizona and we were having success, and he got called, and he was hired at USC, and I was fortunate to be on the staff, and I went with him to SC, and and we went, like I said, we had success and went to the Rose Bowl 3 times and did some good things, and but things are constantly changing too.
Yeah, you guys had a great run. You guys I went to Hawthorne High School, so I mean, just when I went to Hawthorne, we had Travis Hanna and Curtis Conway. Yeah, I mean, I went. I tell people Curtis Conway was the fastest quarterback in the country, and you guys had some great teams at SC at the time, and that's phenomenal when you're in Arizona, a place like Arizona, especially back then. I don't think Arizona was considered that big because they had just moved.
They just moved. I got there in 1980, and their first year in the Pac-10 or the Pac-8, Pac-10 was in 78. So
they came from the WAC,
and I think that's what I said. And I think that was knowing that we had to recruit in California. The fact that I had grown up in California, I think, was beneficial in my situation at Arizona, having a chance to stay with Coach Smith.
1993, Coach Smith is fired by USC with 3 years left of his contract, and all the assistants also disperse, and then you move on to become the head coach at Burroughs High School in Burbank. But talk more about that firing and like just the overall standards of USC football, and just what it was like stepping back from the Pac-10 and going back to your roots in high school coaching.
Well, there was a lot of things involved, and obviously, I felt like I did a good job, when I was coaching there and represented the university in a proper manner on the field coaching and, recruiting. And I understand that there's they want to win games like everybody else, and they have a high level of expectation as they do at UCLA. But everywhere I've been, there's a high level. But obviously, there's been a lot of success at USC, and I love the tradition. I love the fact that you had two. I really enjoyed I love the fact that they had two premier national rivalry games against SC and versus UCLA, SC versus Notre Dame, and being a traditionalist and sentimentalist, I love those things, and I really missed that. And then when I had a chance to go to UCLA, I really relished the fact that at that time, I think that Bob Toledo and myself were maybe the first guys that ever really coached at both schools. And I know for a fact we're the only guys that had coached in a Rose Bowl for both schools.
Wow.
And the expectations are high there too. And you have great kids, and the kids that want to be good. They really want to be good, and they want to be coached hard. And they have high expectations of themselves for the most part. And one of the things that I enjoyed at UCLA and USC was it gave you the opportunity to recruit the very best players in California or wherever your recruiting area was. And, the best player I ever recruited, and I have a lot of pride in this, was Junior Seau. And he was a phenomenal player and a wonderful young man. And he had the intensity he brought to the field was incredible. And, one of the players that I recruited at UCLA did not have the same type of career after college, but I have just as much pride in recruiting him was Chris Saylor, who has done a phenomenal job with his kicking camps all across the country.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris played at Notre Dame High, and he was, he's a wonderful young man, and now he's a veteran. But Chris could do all three areas of kicking, kickoffs, PATs, and punting, which were at a high level school. And not many kids or kickers do that in the games. They can do it, but not in the games that week in and week out. And Chris could do that. But, all the kids that I recruited, that was one of the great things about recruiting. And sometimes you didn't get them, but Justin Fargas, he went to Michigan. But I had a wonderful relationship with Justin, and I kept that through. And recruiting him was great. I enjoyed it. I was disappointed he didn't come, and then he was coming back, and he went to SC, and that was a long story. And he and I went back and forth on that deal for a long time too. But wonderful person. But you don't have to be an all conference or NFL guy to have a great experience with kids and the guys that you recruit. And I'm so fortunate to keep in touch with a number of their men with families now, but I always call them young men. I always say kids, but they're old too, like me now too.
So I just want to talk a little bit more about that gap year, which some viewers would.
Yeah. So I did. Excuse me. I'm sorry. So I went to Burroughs High School, and Coach Smith was going to be out of coaching for that year, and I knew he was going to get another job, and I didn't want to be moving my family around in the back of my mind that I was gonna. Coach Smith was going to get another job, and I was confident that I would have a chance to go with him when he did get another job. And SC paid me my contract through July. And so I had some leeway and some leverage of what I wanted to do. And Tim Buchanan at Burroughs High School I interviewed with, and Tom Tunnicliffe helped me a lot. Tom Tunnicliffe had played for us at Arizona, and he played at Burroughs High School, and I had a good relationship with Tom when he played for us, and he helped me. And so I took the job at Burroughs High School, and you know, you can get you don't have to go to the Rose Bowl to get satisfaction out of coaching and being
absolutely.
with kids. And I had a good experience, a lot of self-satisfaction. Hopefully I made it a good experience. They were 0-18 the previous 2 years before I got there. And I believe we were 5-5 and went to the playoffs. And man, I just enjoyed those kids. And I guess that was in 93 or 4. And, you know, it was a good experience, and it was very rewarding. And I remember Mike Riley was one of our offensive linemen, and he ended up going to UNLV and playing, and then coming back and being the head coach for a while. But I hope they had a good experience too, the players, the year I was there.
I'm glad you said that, Coach, because I always tell people, I feel like for the past few years, when I've stepped down for the college or pro level and I'm working with youth and kids, I do my best coaching job because you have to develop those kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I work with youth and then I go back and coach the pros or the college kids, I'm even doing a better job with them because you got to really develop the high school kids. Like you said, they didn't win a game, and then you guys went 5-5 and went to the playoffs. That's developing.
That's something people don't realize. You're exactly right. And part of coaching is developing.
Yeah, a lot of guys don't know how to develop talent. They can recruit it, but they can't coach. And I always say that you have to be able to develop talent.
And you know, and that's what makes football great. It's a team sport, and you have to develop the player, and you have to develop the team.
Yeah.
And you know, it sometimes it gets carried away in with individual statistics and all and individuality. But football, at the end of the day, if you want to be successful, you have to there's got to be good chemistry.
Yeah.
And part of a team is developing the chemistry of that team and developing those guys as players in their own skill level, in their position, and then again as the team, and bring it together.
Mm-hmm. 1994, you take one of the biggest steps in your life. You turn down a chance to reunite with Coach Smith at Missouri. You also declined an offer to go to Memphis State and 2 other schools.
Wow.
And then you choose to replace your best friend, Paul Palcic, at UCLA in the Pac-10. So we mentioned you switching from Pac-10 rivals Arizona to USC, but now you go into USC's crosstown rival UCLA. And then you end up facing your former player at USC, offensive tackle Todd Bozelli, who becomes an All-American while you're coaching against him and becomes a first-round NFL draft pick. Talk more about that whole overall step in your coaching career, how you go back into college, and then you end up switching allegiances to one of college's biggest rivalries at UCLA.
Well, I was thankful for Coach Donahue, as I said before, but you know, your loyalties where you're working, you know.
Yeah.
And that first year, it was difficult playing against a lot of kids you recruited.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, you develop a rapport with those guys and a bond. And I always felt that it was important that you had a relationship with those kids, and it was an eye opener, and it was hard, and it was really a hard week when we played in those games. And you know, it was tough because it was important to me, and the players on both teams were important to me. And it ended up being my kids were in a nurturing age and in starting high school, and obviously the kids that they went to school knew about it. It was in the community in Santa Clarita. It was important. And but you know, you have to do the job that you're paid to do. And I still take pride in that. There's very few people that have actually coached in the Pac-12 as long as I was fortunate to coach in the Pac-12 or in Pac-10. And there was, as I said, I believe that maybe when Foster Anderson, an old-time UCLA guy, coached at both places, I believe in the late 70s, early 80s, maybe. But I know Bob Toledo and I were two of the first to have coached on both sides, and I believe the only guys that have coached in the Rose Bowl for both schools, I think. But it is great. It was somebody growing up in Southern California that has a real admiration for rivalries, and it was great.
Absolutely. While you say that, just because we're talking about USC, UCLA, you had, if I'm not mistaken, two of the greatest while you're there. I mean, two of the greatest. You said one of them, Tony Baselli. But at UCLA, I know for a fact, unless my years are wrong, you had Jonathan Ogden.
Yep.
Yeah, you had Big O, as we called him. Just putting you on the spot. You got Baselli and Ogden. who was the best? Who you tell me?
They're a little bit different in the sense that Tony, he was going to mash you from day one, and he had Jonathan was a little bit more laid back, and he was so athletic. Tony wasn't. I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't know. I mean, Jonathan was an outstanding athlete. Tony wasn't as athletic as Jonathan, but Tony. I'll tell you, when Junior Seau, Willie McGinnis, Tony Baselli, and Pat Harlow had one-on-one pass pro in practice, you just got the hell out of the way and let them practice. And they went after each other's, and it was the same thing with Jonathan. Jameer Miller was there,
Yeah.
And when Jonathan was real young, but Jonathan was so athletic, and Jonathan, I think he was 8th in the country.
He was the NCAA. He was the NCAA champion in the shot put, and I remember
Jonathan never played spring practice.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he to be a shot put national champion.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I tell people. He was right below an Olympian level shot putter. So he had to have great footwork. I mean, his size. When he walked in the room, you're like, "Whoa, where'd this guy come from?"
Yeah, exactly. He was massive. And I saw him 2 years ago in Las Vegas. I had lunch with him and Jim Fassel, and he's just massive. And both guys were really. This is what people don't understand. I mean, they're into football. They know they're into it. And kids don't understand that if you really want to be good, it's got to occupy your life.
Yep.
And you have to be into it.
Yep.
And you have to work your butt off. And those guys, it was important to them. It was really important. And in both schools now, there was a lot of guys that it's really important to. And, Cade McDowell and the quarterback that they've had at UCLA the last 4 years, I think it probably was pretty doggone important to him. And the quarterback at SC right now, I think it's pretty doggone important to him. He performs on Saturdays. Both those guys do. And there's a lot of guys on both teams that still rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people understand it to the level that those guys care. But back to your point, Jonathan and Tony were great guys to be around.
Mm-hmm. You spent a combined 16 years coaching both UCLA and USC, so you get a once-in-a-lifetime perspective of that historic rivalry. So just for all the listeners out there, talk more about your insights and opinions on the differences between UCLA and USC.
I think that people sometimes, it was only 8 miles away.
Yeah.
And at both schools, they have a lot to offer. And recruiting for both schools, each school had different things to offer, and it depended on, there were some issues that were going on in LA City at that time when I was at SC that really forced you to try to be close to the kids, and some obstacles you had to overcome in recruiting. And I think that was really difficult. And then the coaching changes at UCLA when Coach Donahue retired, and having to work for 3 different coaches at UCLA. Where at SC, I just worked for Coach Smith, so it was a little bit different, but playing in those big games were very meaningful. And yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of kids, they're no longer kids, they're men that have tremendous memories of those games, whether they're Rose Bowl games or UCLA versus SC. And I was fortunate to coach in a couple of games that game meant who was going to the Rose Bowl. And those games were big.
I would say, just from the outside looking in, I've coached at UCLA. I've been at a lot of state schools and stuff. But USC is private. I'd say football-wise, just perception-wise, a little more, not to disrespect UCLA, a little more traditional, a lot more Rose Bowls, national championship.
Yeah.
The stadium's right across the street. That's what I tell people. It's a much bigger challenge at UCLA. If UCLA's not doing well, the kids aren't going to the Rose Bowl. It's a far drive.
Right. Well, the thing is, I don't know if it's true or not, but you felt like there was a part of the alumni in the heritage that favored the rivalry, or the rivalry with UCLA was more important. And then you felt like, well, there's the old timers, maybe, that the rivalry with Notre Dame was more important. And, I relished both of them, and having grown up here in Southern California. And at UCLA, obviously, the rivalry was SC. And, sometimes you were led to believe that because of Coach Wooden's success, that football was second, in second place. But when you go there to coach football, it's just as important. And the kids that you recruit, it's just as important. And to Coach Donahue, hey, it was his life. It was his life. And he loved UCLA, loved it. And that wore off on you in a hurry. And it makes you better too. And I still talk to Larry Smith's wife, and I do talk to Andrea, Coach Donahue's wife, and his kids a little bit on the social media, Facebook, and all of that. And those Coach Donahue and Larry Smith are important to me. But if you really buy into what you're doing, and if it truly is important to you, and you have a passion for what you do, I mean, how can it not be where it's in your body, it's in you. That's just the way it is. And I mean, there's a lot of other people that are insurance and doctors and lawyers, and what they do is important to them too, because they are invested.
Mm-hmm. So you had a lot more stuff to do. You did a lot more jobs in your coaching career after UCLA, after doing UCLA. I don't know if we would have enough time for the rest of the Zoom to do it, but we could definitely reschedule it like next week or something like that. Would you be willing to do that, to talk about like Northern Arizona?
Yeah. Yeah. Every
okay.
place I've been. Let me can I make a couple points real quick though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
is, and this would be pertaining to recruits and the parents of recruits.
Absolutely.
Okay, is there is a place for every young man to play.
Yep.
There is a place.
Yep.
And it's not always the Pac-12. It's not always the Mountain West. It's not the MAC. It's not the Big Ten. You know, there's a couple statistics that over 1 million kids play high school football, but only 6.5% of them play college football, and only 1.6% will go to the NFL.
Yep.
There's 130 Division I schools that play football. There's 92 that play so-called 1AA football. There's still 125 schools that play Division II.
Yep.
There's 97 that play Division III. There's somewhere to play, and it might not be UCLA or Arizona State, or Cal or Stanford or Oregon State, but there is a place to play. If you really want to play, and what kids have to determine is where they fit in. Yep. And embrace it and make it your Super Bowl.
Yep, Coach. I'm glad you said that, Coach. I really am, because I always tell I tell parents there is a university for your son. It might not be UCLA, it might not be Harvard. You know, I tell kids there's black colleges, there's state schools, there's junior colleges. I tell people the same thing you said. You know what? You might not be able to go to UCLA, but you know what? You may be able to go to Cal State Northridge, like when I was there, or you may be able to go to a black college. You may be able to go to a HBCU. You know, I tell African American kids.
That's right.
I coach Division II. I'm like, you can go Division II. If you're a really high academic kid, you can play Division III. So there is a place for you and a university for you. And you
no question.
You know, you have to stay in your lane, like you said. You have to figure out
where you
UCLA. Everybody wanted to go to UCLA or USC as a kid in LA. Guess what? I figured out real quick. I probably wasn't going there, so I went to Northridge.
you were in the same boat I was, you know, and but there is a place, and you know, I think parents, I don't know that they always understand that. And I think it's important to realize it. And when you realize it and understand it, we all want, I mean, my son had a great experience at Fresno State. My daughter had a great experience at UNLV. And they grew up around UCLA and SC all their life. But they had a good experience. And I'll say this, because I have 3 children, okay? And 2 of them played intercollegiate athletics, okay? And they had a great experience in college. And my other daughter, she graduated from college, but she didn't play athletics in college. And I always felt that she missed something in her college days, not having played or having the opportunity to play. And when I say that college athletics can do something for you, I think it enhances your college experience. And you don't have to win the Heisman Trophy or be all conference. It heightens your college experience, which is learning. And I saw it firsthand with my own children.